Hey guys, this is Jeff Tebbets, host of the Jersey Swap. Want to welcome you to another international window, meaning that your FC Cincinnati squad has the weekend off, and we get to focus on the United States men's national team facing off against South Korea and Japan. Now, when you're listening to this, they'll already have played against South Korea. And so, what I've done is I've called in my good friend Dan Orlowitz, all the way from Japan. We're going to talk about the United States versus Japan taking place Tuesday up in Columbus, Ohio at lower.com field. We're going to go into context about the Japanese team and the United States team and what we expect out of both sides. I hope you enjoy. And let's listen to the show. The Jersey Swap podcast is sponsored by Apollo Home. Folks, your orange and blue are resting this weekend, so perhaps you should turn your attention to your HVAC. We've had some outrageously hot summer days, so there's a good chance it needs the rest and TLC. Give Apollo Home a call, send them a text, or schedule online at apollohome.com so that they can check things out. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jersey Swap podcast. Time for a timeout, FC fans. We've had tournaments up the wazoo this year, so it's only going to get harder to consume with the World Cup coming next year, in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Now, as much as the hype train has been for mostly the locations where the games will be played, the three automatic qualifiers still have to put together squads that can compete. And that means that Canada goes to Europe for friendlies, but US and E33, Mexico, they'll take on two new behemoths from Asia, both the team from South Korea and the team from Japan. They've both qualified in the last 7 World Cups, but both are looking to prove that they can get past the round of 16. Last time around, Japan lost in a shootout against Croatia, and Korea lost to Brazil in the round of 16. What can we expect for these teams, especially against the United States roster that still seems to be under construction? And what can we expect out of the Japanese team as well? We're bringing in our good friend, Dan Orlowitz, back to the program so we can pregame before these friendlies, especially when it comes to the Japan game taking place in Columbus. So let's add him to the stage here. How are you doing tonight, Dan?
I'm good, Jeff. Good to be back. Yeah, it's a advanced warning to all your listeners and your viewers. I just flew back from the US on it's
I think
Thursday morning.
Was it Monday or Tuesday
So
morning?
I flew out Monday. I
Yeah.
landed Tuesday. Between the jet lag and the second comically large mug of coffee that I'm currently on, I can see through time. So, anything out of pocket, I say let's just blame the jet lag on. But it's good, good to be back with my public transportation and socialized medicine and magical toilets, all that good stuff. Not loving the humidity, but and sad I can't be in Columbus for this game, which is going to be a great opportunity for Japan. We'll see how good an opportunity it is for the US, but it's I think that if you look at where Japan is in terms of preparation for the World Cup, getting these two games against Mexico and the US is perfect matchmaking on the part of the JFA.
Yeah, it's perfect matchmaking for, all of AFC, the Asian Federation there. Getting in South Korea as well for Harrison, New Jersey. That one will take place on Saturday. We're talking about the game on Tuesday that will take place at lower.com field. You were one of the best experts that I know that's in my Rolodex to talk about the Japanese team. And it's probably a good idea to start, getting these wheels churning for previewing next year. I see that you've worn your Philadelphia shirt, so you're going to rub in our loss last week as well.
Well, this is Go Birds. NFL season starts in about 24 hours. So
Yeah, just about.
we get to gloat about that Super Bowl win just a little bit longer. The Union are in good form. You and I were joking off air when I sent my headshot. I got someone's got to wave the flag for the Union in Japan. There are not many of us. You may not know this. I actually translated the Sons of Ben documentary. Did Japanese subtitles for a film festival. This is about 10 years ago.
Wow.
So I do my best to rep. and it's good time to be a Philly sports fan, and good time to be a Japan fan, of the national team, and so I get sort of the best of both worlds right now.
Yeah, you certainly are covering a bunch of good vibes, I think, coming out of the Japanese team. Can you give us sort of an update of what you've been doing since? I know you're still unaffiliated, but with everything that's going on with the national team, we want to see what you're covering lately.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of writing for Nikkei Asia, which is the English language outlet for the Nikkei Shimbun, which is the Japanese equivalent of the Wall Street Journal, more or less. I've been writing for The Guardian, the U.S. edition. I did a piece back in March when Japan qualified that I'm very proud of on the impact of multiracial players in the national team, both sort of historically and more recently. And looking at this squad, we can even get into that a bit today. I wrote some stuff for Sounders at Heart and a couple of other outlets for the Club World Cup, because we had Urawa Reds representing Japan. And, I'm here and there doing things while I'm working on the broadcast side for the World Athletics Championships coming next week, and hope to line up some cool things this fall.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, it must have been sort of a really wondrous occasion to see Urawa, in full-throated force. All of those, I couldn't count how many fans were in the section that they were all bouncing to their chants.
I believe something like as many as 5,000 fans made the trip overall. I don't know if they all made it to one match, but I think at most there were maybe around 3,000 or 4,000 fans at the better attended matches. And the team didn't perform, which we expected. Nobody had nobody who understands how Urawa have been this season, these last couple seasons. In fact, nobody had high expectations. But what I consistently said is that the fans are going to be incredible. And they were.
Yeah.
Urawa have a very unique supporter culture for Japan, in that they are the closest that Japan has to a real hardcore European style ultra support. Not quite as hooliganistic, not quite as violent. They've had plenty of incidents, but they came out and it showed. And I think they were, for the most part, great representatives of how passionate the Japanese game can be.
Yeah, having seen Urawa both in their home and away formats, this is a team that's passionate. I can only hope that the national team gets this much passion out of its fans coming to the World Cup next season. They've done a pretty good job. Let's sort of look at these two teams a little bit that will be representing the Asian Federation coming over and playing friendlies against the U.S., particularly Japan. But we can, I think, bring in South Korea as well. Can you sort of give an update on how well these teams have played qualifying for the World Cup?
Yeah. So looking at Asia qualifying in this cycle, the AFC benefited from a significant boost to its. I'm going to stop to clear my throat for a second.
Edit that out, Mike.
Thank God this isn't live. So the Asia received a very big boost from 4 direct qualifiers and 1 playoff. Although I think in 2022 it was 5 and
I think it was 5 and 1, maybe
5.5 because of Qatar. So this cycle it's 8.5. So the field has definitely expanded. You look at the second round, which was the first group stage. Japan just cakewalked 24 goals for, 0 goals against. That did include a 3-0 forfeit victory against North Korea.
That's right. That's right.
They beat North Korea. Then North Korea refused to host Japan. I think there was a bird flu going around in a couple places in Japan, and Pyongyang got cold feet. I mean, I was at that home game. That the vibes were very weird, and I actually have a very good friend of mine was preparing to travel to Pyongyang to cover that game. So he had quite the adventure, and he actually has some great stories from the same fixture in 2011, but that's neither here nor there. South Korea had a similar path. 20 goals for, 1 goal against. They went 5-1 nil. I think the only game they tied was against Thailand, who unfortunately are one of Southeast Asia's best teams, but unfortunately just didn't really get it together and didn't get through to round 4, which is very disappointing. And then you look at, or excuse me, round 3, which is very disappointing. And then you look at the third round of qualifying. South Korea just dog walked everyone. They went a perfect 6 wins, 4 draws, no losses. Had no problem in a group that was all West Asian sides. And Japan did similarly well. 1 loss in a dead rubber against Australia, but other than that, 7 wins, 2 draws, 30 goals for, 3 goals against. Like, what are we doing here? And I will say, I think that everyone expected Japan's group to be more difficult than it was, because you have Australia, who are at this point Japan's big rival. Saudi Arabia, who are supposed to be investing significantly in their program. You look at the investment into the domestic league. They've qualified for World Cups. They beat Argentina in 2022. So you look at how they did. Indonesia are upstarts, and they've gotten their program back together in a big way. But they had a coaching reshuffle, I believe, midway through the campaign. Maybe not the best run association in the AFC, although you can say that about a lot of AFC teams, if we're being honest. So Japan did benefit from all of its opponents stepping on rakes at some point, but they were also by far and away the better team throughout. You were not seeing the timidity that they would sometimes approach qualifiers in the previous cycle with, especially in the last qualifying group. I think that if you had only watched Japan at the 2022 World Cup, you saw a team that was holding back, parking the bus, bending but not breaking, and then attacking and taking those chances and creating those goals against Spain and Germany. That's not a style of play we've seen at all in this cycle. They've just been aggressive, and doesn't really matter who you put on the pitch. You're going to get some amazing link ups, some really dynamic passing, and goals everywhere. So that's how things have been for Japan. South Korea, I sort of glossed over them, but they've had their share of federation drama.
Jurgen Klinsmann being here and then gone, right?
Correct. And nobody's really happy with the state of things. I mean, you have Hong Myung-bo as the current head coach, and which very keen MLS fans will know from his 2 years at the LA Galaxy. He had this is his second stint in charge of the national team. He's just come off of a strong run at Ulsan HD. And yeah, seems to have steadied things. But the question will be, well, are South Korea legit? And that is very much a question mark. I think that right now there's far more expectation. The expectations on Japan are astronomically higher than on any other of Asia's qualified teams at the moment.
I mean, everyone will point towards Sung Hyun-min as being like the big name in South Korea. That's for certain. But as far as the offense that comes behind him, I think you've got a few youngsters. I recall covering when Ulsan came over. But I think the head coach is definitely the one that has to galvanize this team. Those 4 years that Hong had coached at Ulsan, he definitely righted their ship as well. I mean, you can see from 3 seasons in a row, I think they won the main cup there. Yep. And then once he left for the national team, Ulsan now is running on fumes. They are a shell of the team that they used to be. So I honestly think if this South Korean team is going to go far, it's going to have to be with the head coach pulling all the strings. And I think we can also see that with Japan. Maybe you can sort of give us a crash course on Moriyasu, the head coach for Japan. He's been there for the longest time, if I recall. I mean, what's his style like as a head coach?
So Moriyasu is a very interesting case, and I think we were discussing in the green room sort of whether he is Japan's most successful coach.
Hmm.
And I think that it really depends on how you define success, because qualifying for 2 straight World Cups is certainly successful. But he's, in terms of actual trophies, he's only won 2 EAFF E1 championships, basically otherwise known as the East Asian Cup,
Hmm.
which is a 4-team competition. Not exactly something that you're putting at the top of your CV.
Yeah.
He's never won an Asian Cup except as a player, of course. Fell short in 2018, and then in 2020, or excuse me, 2019, and then 2023. So he's still yet to win a big competition.
Hmm.
So in that sense, he's a very emotional manager. Not in the sense that he's getting angry on the pitch, but he likes to tug at heartstrings, especially when dealing with media, when talking to the fans. He is from so he spent all of his career at Sanfrecce Hiroshima.
Hmm.
He is very, and he went to school in Nagasaki, so he's very attuned to that area, and especially given the fact that Nagasaki and Hiroshima were both
Right.
bombed, and so that the way that he talks about, especially every August, when Japan commemorates the atomic bombings, the way that he uses them as part of his narrative in terms of what he's trying to achieve with these teams, and trying to, bring, bring happiness and something to smile about to the Japanese people. And, he's just that is such a core part of his storyline and his background. And that's something I remember him talking about extensively when he was coaching Japan's Olympic team
Hmm.
in 2021. Is even That was right after they had lost to, was it Spain or Mexico? I think Mexico, in the bronze medal game. And it's like it's just after the bronze medal match. They've lost, and here he is talking about Hiroshima and the anniversary of the bombing.
Hmm.
Not talking about the game at all, just going on at length about this. So that is that speaks as to the kind of manager he is. And he's, you know, in terms of his managerial style, it's hard to say if he's like sort of stupid as a fox, or if he's actually stumbled into the success he has, or if he's actually that good. In fairness, he guided Sanfrecce Hiroshima to 3 league titles, their first 3.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was his, you know, it was that period of success at Hiroshima that enabled the club to build a new stadium, in downtown Hiroshima, which was huge, and has changed the makeup of the team in a very
Hmm.
good way. So and he's gotten them to the World Cup twice. No other national team manager has been given a renewal after a World Cup cycle. So it does speak to him. And I think that we can, those of us who cover Japan, uh, as a hobby or career, we can be critical of him, because he does tend to bottle it in situations where he really
Hmm.
shouldn't. But he, for better or for worse, he beat Germany and Spain in the World Cup, and that gets you a lot of that gets you a lot of social currency. So I don't know if I've answered the question in the way that you were hoping for.
It, it
Maybe that's a bit of a broad overview.
it does feel like the social currency is sort of a different style of currency. It certainly is not US dollars. I mean,
Correct.
we've gone through so many iterations of head coaches. It was interesting that you brought up how Moriyasu is a coach where he's done a lot of his things within the Japanese system with
Mhm.
Hiroshima. Maybe a good parallel might be Greg Berhalter, in terms of like he built up his resume in successful club teams within MLS, went to the bigger stage, found himself gaining momentum, and then the big games he just couldn't win it. It seems like a good parallel, perhaps, to Moriyasu.
Similar, and the other thing that is worth mentioning is that he's the first full-time Japanese coach of the
Mm-hmm.
national team since I guess Takeshi Okada
Mm.
in 2000, who sort of saw things out through the end of the Takeshi Okada took over from Ivica Osim during the 2010 qualifying cycle, and he finished it out. And then afterwards, they handed the reins to Alberto Zaccaroni,
Mm-hmm.
who won the Asian Cup, got them to Brazil, and then they just flopped in Brazil. And after Alberto Zaccaroni was Javier Aguirre, who lost in the quarterfinals of the 2015 Asian Cup, and then he had that match fixing scandal hanging over him, and he resigned, and now he's doing well. He's in charge of Mexico these days, isn't he?
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel because I think Mexico was the team that Japan lost to in the third place in the Olympics.
Right, right.
Yeah, so
Um,
yeah.
so Aguirre left, and he was replaced by Vahid Halilovic, who was very. He had a philosophy, and his philosophy did not mesh with the Japanese way of doing things. In both in he was very defense heavy. His press conferences were these 2-hour rambling monologues with whiteboards and everything. Um, he was the first manager to really restrict the amount of media time that all the players were getting, which did not make him a friend of the press. Um, the tactics nerds loved him because he would just go on and on about what he was trying to do, but the beat writers who needed to get Keisuke Honda's quote for page one, they were not so happy.
Yeah.
So he qualified them for Russia, and then 2 months before the competition, he was sacked. And then, so I think Moriyasu's appointment was more the JFA saying, "Well, okay, we're tired of dealing with foreign coaches." That was
Okay.
part of it. And at the time, he was coaching Japan's Olympic team, which is why he sort of took on a dual role
Mm-hmm.
going into the 2020 cycle, or 2020 and 2022 cycle, which is why he coached at the Olympics and then he coached at the World Cup. So yeah, he's Moriyasu. I think his character is more fitted to work within Japan. And in fairness, he's also had to oversee the late stage of the transition from the national team being based entirely in Japan to the national team being based entirely in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something
And
I do want to bring up. I mean, you've got a team of all-stars, in my opinion, that have really stretched their influence all across Europe. I mean, you see Celtic take advantage of it. You see now Liverpool, of course, Brighton, places in the Premier League are getting some of the best talent from Japan to come and play significant minutes for some significant teams in Europe. I mean, do you feel that this is is this a sign that this team is good, or is this the team getting good because they've got this exposure?
bit of column A, bit of column B. I think that as you know, and as your listeners may know, Japanese players have always done really well in Germany, for example. They've been going to the Bundesliga for something like 30, 40 years at this point. What we're seeing, especially in England, not only with players going to Premier League clubs, but players going to championship clubs in droves. That is sort of an added bonus of Brexit,
Mm-hmm.
which has helped to relax some of the visa regulations. But also, I think that championship teams, League One teams even, are looking at the player pool in Japan, and they are seeing that not just diamonds in the rough, diamonds sitting on top of other diamonds, diamonds hidden behind bigger diamonds, just gems up and down the Japanese, table, and even starting where they're even starting to take risks on signing players out of high school and out of university. You have players like, excuse me, 1 second, I really
Yeah.
apologize. you have players like Yuito Suzuki, who went to France, didn't really do so well, came back to Japan, took a second run in Denmark, did fantastically, and secured a move to Freiburg in Germany. So it's the challenge that Japan has from the team building perspective is that you no longer have a core of national team players in the J League who are hanging out with each other, playing against each other, training with each other. These players are sort of spread to the four winds in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Spain, in England, in France. And so, how do you build the chemistry? That's the real challenge that Moriyasu has, which is that all these players have to fly back to Japan. It's not an easy flight, especially these days with all the stuff going on in Ukraine and with Russia airspace being inaccessible. That's a 14, 15-hour flight. So they've got to get here, train for maybe 2 or 3 days, and then play a qualifier. I think that Moriyasu has benefited from these qualifiers kind of being cakewalks, and that they don't have to really work too hard to get ready for them. But heading into this World Cup, now you've really got to think about chemistry. Now you've got to think about how's the locker room looking. I know that you flagged Yuto Nagatomo in the squad as someone to talk to, and he's really the player who he has the most caps in this national team by a long shot. I think 140 something, if memory serves. And so he's serving as the veteran. He is the mentor. He may not play much. He may come on as a sub if he plays at all, if he makes the squad at all. But his role is in the locker room. His role is on the training pitch. And it's players like him, players like Wataru Endo, who have World Cup experience, who it's their jobs to talk to these younger players who are in this role for the first time and get them ready. So that's the challenge here. And I think that Japan benefits or can benefit from the fact that there is no star. There is no Messi. There is no Ronaldo. There is no Song Heung-min. I mean, although you can talk about maybe like Takefusa Kubo or Kaoru Mitoma being the closest Japan has. But we are so far removed from Hidetoshi Nakata being the star, or Shinsuke Nakamura,
or a Keisuke Honda, or
Keisuke Honda,
right,
and Shinji Kagawa.
Yes,
being the stars of the 2014 and 2018 cycles. We're so far past that, and so that is the challenge. If you're talking about the zeitgeist question of, well, where does the national team stand in the public consciousness, because there is no star to latch onto, and it's so much harder to watch these players because they're not in Europe, or excuse me, they're not in Japan, they're in Europe. So I remember when you could go to a J League game and there would almost always be a national team player on the pitch, and now there are future national team players, but unless you're going to SC Tokyo to see Nagatomo, unless you're going to like a Reysol game to see Mao Hosoya, you're not really seeing these NT players. So that's the big challenge right now, is the team building and getting all these personalities to mesh. But like I said, with no stars, it means that there's no egos. And that means that it's much easier for Moriyasu to form, to sharpen this blade and point it in the general direction of the other 47 teams.
The Jersey Swap podcast is also sponsored by Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. In fact, they help some of our local MLS, MLS Next Pro, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. We've got a little list of the roster that Moriyasu's pulled together. It's not completely accurate. All thanks to our friend Ryo from Twitterverse. He's the go-to guy for talking about Japanese soccer. This is sort of the attacking names that are in place. Not all of them. Some have been replaced. Anybody that stands out as being sort of who could feature against the United States?
So the real question is going to be, how is Moriyasu going to approach rotation between the Mexico and the US games. And so it's hard to really predict who is in line for a starting role. This is sort of a general depth chart, but of course Takefusa Kubo being a top on the right, that makes a lot of sense. Junya Ito, I think he's a bolted on starter in normal circumstances. I'm curious about Kaishu Sano being paired with Endo. I think that Sano is there because Hidemasa Morita is, I believe, out with an injury.
Yes.
So he's not available. We could see Joel Chima Fujita, who I didn't realize was at St. Pauli this season. That was a bit of a surprise when I realized that earlier this summer. He could get some time. Kaoru Mitoma is certainly the most well-known Japanese player in this squad because he's been just killing it in the Premier League these last couple of seasons. I don't know who goes up top, to be honest. Ayase Ueda is at Feyenoord these days. Could it be Machino? Could it be Ogawa? They could start Daisen Maeda up top.
That's possible too, yeah.
Right. So one interesting thing about how Moriyasu announces his squads is that he doesn't actually differentiate between midfielders and forwards. So all of the attackers are listed as midfield/forward. And they will, once the actual squad is announced on the official match sheet, they'll be given positions. But it shows you sort of his mindset in terms of how he's planning things and how he's approaching it. You've got a 3-back system, which could be, God knows, I think it'll be probably Koi Takara, Tsuyoshi Watanabe, and it could be Seko. Hiroki Ito at Bayern is still recovering from his injury, so he's not fit yet. Takehiro Tomiyasu, who left Arsenal this summer because of his knee problems. There's talk of him aiming for a return with St. Troiden in Belgium, the noted clearinghouse for Japanese players. So, it's hard to say. Like, I think that whoever starts in goal, whoever starts the Mexico game between Zion Suzuki and Keisuke Osako, I think the other person will start against the US.
Yeah.
I don't really think that matters. Like, Hayakawa is having a great season, but I see Suzuki and Osako as 1 and 2. So, it's really hard to say, but like, even with the injuries that Japan has and the players that are missing, this is still a great squad. I'm not sure it's the squad I would take to the World Cup. There's probably some changes, but like if you go through all these names, and of course we didn't really mention Daichi Kamada, who was an additional call up, and he could be center forward in this sort of depth chart. So we're starting to get to the point. I think you would ask, well, how are you approaching building the squad? One of the benefits of Japan qualifying for the World Cup so early back in March is that they have more than a year to figure this out. So they had the 2 dead rubbers in June, these 2 friendlies, 2 friendlies in October against Paraguay and Brazil.
Big names. Those are going to be difficult. Yeah.
Brazil at the National Stadium basically sold out already. That's going to be a treat. And 2 games, I believe, that are also going to be in Japan in November, and then the March cycle, and then that's it. So the time will be gone before we know it. But I think we're starting to see what this squad will look like, and also you have to consider that, unlike if you want to count back to the 2014 cycle or the 2018 cycle, where there were maybe 15, 20, 25 Japanese players in Europe, now there's probably 100 to look out for. So you can, your A team can come out of Europe, your B team can come out of Europe, your C team can come out of Europe. And that speaks to the depth of Japan's player pool right now. And I think that Moriyasu is going to be looking at how players are getting on with their clubs, and he has the benefit of being able to look at and say, well, if they're not getting minutes, maybe they're not going to be ready. Or he can also say, well, I know that they're not getting minutes, as many minutes as I would like them to, but in the case of Wataru Endo, for example,
Mhm.
someone, even if he's coming off as a sub for Liverpool, what he's bringing to the national team, and he'll probably be captain, I would imagine, at the World Cup next year. And so what you're getting. And so I think that Moriyasu knows what he's getting from a lot of these players, and these friendlies are about the players who he hasn't seen as much, and what can they bring.
That's sort of what I feel the US should have already gone through. They should have their teams settled and ready in terms of like who they see as a specific starting 11. I don't see that. I'm going to bring up this. We'll see if we can sort of close things out a little bit with the US team that's been rostered for these two friendlies. Um, it's tough. You talk about the Japanese team having a lot of their talent. I think spreading roots in Europe, and I think a lot of the United States players have tried that, but there's been so much movement between teams because if you go to the likes of a Chelsea, you're not going to get so much time there. You're going to have to go somewhere else, either on loan or a smaller team in Europe, or in the case of, let's say, a Matt Miazga, you're going to have to come back to the United States. And it seems like a lot of players are starting to do that. We're seeing that with like Paxton Aronson, for example, going to Colorado along with Zach Steffen. You're seeing a lot of players returning to their roots here in the United States. I don't know how that's good for building a team. I mean, are there any names that jump out to you here that sort of have to prove themselves within this roster?
I think most of this squad has to prove itself in this roster, if we're being honest. Like, if you ask who's sort of bolted on, like, you expect like Tim Ream to be a lock. Of course, Christian's going to be in, Josh Sargent's probably going to be in, Tim Way is probably going to be like, there's a handful of names here that you kind of know will be in the final squad, but
Mhm.
like, is I'm looking at Nathan Harriel's name. Like, he's
Mhm.
got one. He's so many of these players only have maybe one or no caps.
Right, right.
Um, this is a weird time to be calling up players with like less than 10 caps to the national team,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that that's not necessarily a judgment on the players, but it is a judgment on how the USSF has handled their squad building. Like, it does not seem like they have spent the last 3 years building towards this World Cup.
It feels like they've been sort of sleepwalking a little bit. I mean,
Right.
I think when it comes to having a brand new coach like Mauricio Pochettino, there is a little bit of a growing pain. You have to figure out what his system is like, who he considers to be the best players to fit in it. But it doesn't feel like he's really decided on anybody. I mean, other than the likes of Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, and waiting for certain other players to get healthy. Ricardo Pepi, Tyler Adams is on this list, but he hasn't been healthy in years, for
Mm.
frankly. And then you're looking at newcomers like Diego Luna, an Alex Freeman from Orlando, a Sebastian Berhalter from Vancouver. These are all untested names. And then you look at the goalkeepers where you've got 3 players and someone who's got 7 caps is basically your go-to goalkeeper. I mean, you're hoping that the likes of Matt Turner can sort of find his juice again with New England. But all of this, it just feels like you've got a team that is not buttoned down and ready for any sort of competition.
I agree completely. Like, at least if you're looking at Japan squad, and even the players who don't have as many caps, I think that you're still seeing players who are in Europe, and like they're proving themselves, and that's really key. Like, if you can survive in the Bundesliga, you're ready for the national
Mhm.
team.
Absolutely.
And I look at this, I look at this and like, well, if you survive in MLS, are you really ready for the national team?
It's a tough question. I mean, I feel like he wants to trust players that are here, but I also feel that, there are a lot of players that are coming off injuries
Mhm.
and have come back to the US because of, the injuries just haven't helped them out. Um, I just don't know.
I mean, I'm looking at, Tim Weah was with 44 caps, Pulisic with 78, Tim Ream with 74. Uh, I compare that to Japan squad where, Nagatomo, as I mentioned earlier, has 143. Minamino has 67. Junya Ito has 62. Ritsu Doan is 57. Kubo is 44. Ayase Ueda has 31. Yes, we do have a lot of players. Actually, not a single. I'm pretty sure even if you include the late call ups, not a single player has 0 caps for the
Wow.
nat for Japan's team. Everyone has, like, Hayakawa has 1. I think he might have gotten 1 in the this year's East Asian Cup, and Hiroke Sekine has 1.
Mm,
There's quite a few with 10 or less, but everyone has experience. Um, and again, like, I don't think that the number of caps matter when you're playing in the Bundesliga.
mm, mm.
You know, I think that is Henry Hiroki Mochizuki going to make the squad? Probably not, but like he did really well in the East Asian Cup. Like I think that he's just being given a chance to prove himself in the seniors, in the A team. We'll see how that goes, but like I, I think that Japan is where the US should be.
Yeah.
And you know uh, talking about why the US is in the position that it's in, like that's another conversation entirely. That's a different episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to you can't look at this matchup and not think that Japan are coming in with a much stronger position.
I mean, I'm looking at the US roster. My guess is here is I think you're going to see Freeze start both games. Defenders, you're going to see a combination of Tim Ream and Chris Richards, Alex Freeman and Max Arfston are probably going to see some time on the edges. Maybe Dest plays himself back to fullness a little bit. Midfield feels like it's a little missing here, but Berhalter has done a good job to, I think, solidify himself as a false number 6. But Tyler Adams is going to be your central defender there. Maybe you see a little bit of Christian Roldan filling in. From what I understand, he's not 100% healthy, so I don't know about that. I want to see Diego Luna excel. I want to see him show that he can be this up and comer.
Mhm.
As far as the forwards are concerned, if Josh Sargent can show that this hot streak that he's had in Norwich, I believe he's got 6 goals in 5 games or 6 games already. If he can show that he can be hot without, falling behind the wayside and performing as a stronger forward and not just a sort of a young faced debutante, then I think you've got somebody that Tim Way and Kristen Pulisic can play aside of. But I really want to see somebody come up and grab that number 9 by the horn.
Right, and I think that US fans are hopeful. You are hopeful that these players will step up and establish themselves. And meanwhile, I can look at Japan's squad and say Suzuki in goal, Itakura, Ito when he's healthy, and Watanabe on the back line. Endo and a healthy Morita in central midfield. Junya Ito on the right wing, Mitoma on the left, and then your top is Kubo. I would say like Kubo, Maeda, Kamada. Like
Yeah.
I'd be happy. I'd be happy with that. I would take that lineup. And so we're sort of set. Not set, but like it really doesn't matter who you put up top. Like I feel like that's the great thing about Japan's chemistry is that there is always a who's next.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that when you have that mentality, like even when you have players who are injured, there's our depth is at the point where whoever slots in will generally step up. Can they step up in the big games? That's a big question. But whoever we slot, like there's no questions as to whether or not they can. It's whether or not they will.
If we look at these two games, what both the US and Japan, what results do you want to see for both teams to consider it a positive?
For Japan, I think winning both games would be a massive statement of intent. I think that part of the reason that these two games are so important is that, especially in friendlies, Japan so rarely gets the opportunity to play away and in really hostile environments, which, look, playing against Mexico in California, that should be a hostile environment.
It
And
will.
I hope that I don't know how many Japanese fans are traveling for these games. And a lot of them are, some are going to be going, others are going to be saving up their significantly depreciated yen for next year. But I hope that the Mexican fans turn out because you know, especially for the players who don't have as many caps, playing in that environment is going to give them a taste of what next year is going to be like.
Yeah.
And that's really important because you can't replicate that in every AFC country. You get a taste of that, and you do get tough environments in Saudi Arabia, in Indonesia, in Qatar to an extent, depending on where you're playing in Australia. But like, let's face it, I think Japan is good enough in Asia that it can overcome any of that. But like, you're not, it's not like Japan are going to play Brazil in Sao Paulo. They're not really getting a chance to play France in Paris. Actually, that's a game that I saw in person 12 or 13 years ago. Like, those games never happen. They play these cupcake friendlies at home, and it's 40 or 50,000 Japanese fans watching. And like, the result doesn't really matter because everyone's had a good time. But to go to a stadium where everyone hates you, where people are booing the anthem, where people are throwing beer and God knows what else when you're taking a corner kick. I'm not saying it's going to get that extreme in Oakland, but like, even 20% of that level will help these young kids, these less experienced players, get a sense of what next year could be like.
Yeah.
I'm
going to look at the United States and say that the result is one thing, but winning both will be, once again, massive. People might look at it and say, well, it's against Japan and South Korea at home. But these are the best that we're seeing come out of East Asia. It's the best that we're seeing come out of Asia. So to win both of these games is going to be an improvement. The issue that I have is this going to be a 1-0 win for both of them? Is it going to be something where, oops, all passing, that they just decide to hold the ball as much as possible, get one lucky break, and win the game? I don't think that type of approach is going to win you anything against the likes of Germany, Spain, the behemoths out there that typically will give you 90 minutes and everything. So they need to treat these games as if they are at the World Cup, bar none. If they treat these like, oh, I'm going back to my club after this, it means nothing, then you might as well stay with the club. I'll be honest with that. I want to see passion coming out of these players. I want to see the talent coming up and making these statement wins solid on paper and in actuality.
It's really interesting that you talk about wanting to see passion come out of the players when, like, from the Japanese perspective, like, that's not something you really hear. I think, and I think that really speaks to the very different expectations that US fans and Japanese fans have when they approach. Like, nobody is doubting that Japanese players aren't giving everything for the badge. Like I think that's like the default, like that's something you expect. And so I do think that that speaks to where U.S. soccer fandom is these days. That is a concern.
Yeah.
I think you look at the last meeting between these two teams. It was 3 years ago in Germany, where Japan man manhandled the U.S. and Moriyasu's teams looked really rough heading into that Qatar World Cup, and we're watching this and we're going, wait, are we good? Like that was the first time that things that we started to wonder, like, wait, is Moriyasu really gonna like? Because Moriyasu came up for a lot of stick
Mm.
heading into that Qatar World Cup, and we're looking at that and we're like, wait, is he gonna pull a rabbit out of his hat? Because Japan just dominated that game.
And looking at that lineup back then, Daichi Kamada, I believe the other scores, Mitoma got the other goal late in that
Yep,
one.
yep,
So
yep.
it's a team that talent from 3 years ago is still there and still ticking for Japan. While you look at the U.S. side and you had Aaron Long,
Mhm.
Sam Vines playing
Weston
alongside of,
McKennie,
I mean, granted, you had Adams and McKennie playing, but then you had Luca Della Torre, who is still with the team. You had Jesus Ferreira up top, who really isn't really on anybody's radar anymore. It it'll be interesting to see what the result can be just from these differences in the roster.
and that squad, if you look at that Japan squad at the time, like Gonda in goal, the back line was mostly starters. Gonda was the second pick behind Daniel Schmidt.
Mm,
Endo and Morita were starters. Ito was emerging as a starter. Kamada was sort of trying to prove himself. Kubo was a bolted on starter. And Maida was really breaking out. This was very, I guess this would have been after Maida had gone to Celtic. So, he was sort of having a breakout year for them. So like this was in many ways the seeds of what you're seeing, what you'll see on Tuesday. But yeah, like, and then of course you look at now, like, I mean, Tomiyasu's out. I mean, a totally different center back pairing. We'll see how that goes, and we'll see if Tomiyasu manages to get back into fitness before the World Cup and have enough time to train. But yeah, it's funny how like so much has changed for Japan, and but in other ways, like so little has changed.
yeah.
I think that the key thing for us is the expectation game, where if Japan beats Mexico and the US, you're going to have a lot of the media and the fans are going to be saying, "Oh, well, we've beaten the co-hosts." Like,
Yeah.
whereas I remember in 2013, I traveled to Belgium to cover the November international break. They drew against the Netherlands, and then they beat Belgium 3-1 in Brussels.
Wow.
3-1 or 3-2. And Yoichiro Kakitani was like the hero of that game. He scored a phenomenal goal. And we were on the hype train. We felt good. We felt confident. And then we know how 2014 turned out. So I think that the regulating expectations, keeping them from, you want everyone to be confident. You don't want everyone to expect that the quarterfinals are going to be served in a silver platter. This is going to be, just the travel distance, the fact that now there's going to be a round of 32.
Mm,
God knows how these pots are going to turn out.
I know.
Like,
Jeez.
this is going to be such a weird World Cup. And so, this is, someone was asking, I think it was on Reddit, I saw someone asking, like, well, why is Japan bothering playing against the US? And it's like, well, they are one, they need a good result to make sure that they stay in pot two. That FIFA ranking and that seeding is important. And two, this is a huge test for the JFA,
Mhm.
who have to figure out how to get that team to California and then move everything to Ohio. And, like, in not in 3 days, basically. Like, the logistics of a World Cup. Like it's not just the players who are being challenged here; it's the entire back office staff who have to keep everything moving and make sure the players are in the best possible environment to win. And this is going to be a big test for them, and they've got to do it again next summer when everything is up for grabs.
I mean, I'm looking at the last time that they've had friendlies, and that 4-1 victory against Germany in 2023
Yep.
looks awfully big. So looking at what things are going to be like up in Columbus, I'm saying U.S. have to win both games. I think they can win not handily. They can prove themselves worth with South Korea, but they need to win against Japan. Let's see if we can wrap things up. We had a lot of things to discuss about these two teams. I know your voice is hung in there. Very good. I'm very happy that the coffee's worked out. But yeah, I mean, thank you for your time. Where can we find you all over the World Wide Web?
Primarily Blue Sky at aishiteru.tokyo.bsky.social. You can find Ryo Nakagawara on Blue Sky as well. I forgot to mention that earlier, but he is he's straddling both platforms at the minute. I've mostly switched. If you want, I mean, my account is still on the old site, but I mainly just sort of use it to check my DMs once in a while. You can find me plugging what I write on both, on Blue Sky. I've got some cool stuff coming up later this fall for Nikkei Asia, including probably some non-sports content. That's the good thing about being freelance. I can sort of stretch myself and take on all the fun things that I wouldn't have gotten to write for when I was at the paper. I'm doing things. I'm doing things, planning things. If you are a publisher who is desperate for that gigantic, massive book about Japanese soccer in all its glory, my DMs are wide open. I mean, that, I've threatened to write a book for years now, and eventually I'm going to follow through with that. So,
there you go.
But yeah, I'm out there.
Give him a DM if you're on Blue Sky. I showed it. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of projects, I was recently on. I was interviewed by 442 magazine for an amazing 2-video series that they did. They sent a crew out here for the Liverpool Yokohama F Marinos friendly, and they also went to an Urawa game, and I talked to them, and doing the talking head thing, and that was a great video. So do check that out because it's nice to see Western media covering Japanese soccer beyond sort of the surface level stuff and actually getting deeper into the fan culture and why it's such a great league to follow. So do check that out.
We'll put that link up when we put it up on our website. Dan, thank you very much for your time. Guys, if you want to follow it, follow us as well. I'm going to put our stuff up there. Go to X, Cincy Soccer Talk. Go to Blue Sky, cincysoccertalk.bsky.social. And you can find us, of course, at our website, cincinnati-soccertalk.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on your favorite podcasting platforms. We are at the 1 hour mark. How about that? Thank you very much for your time, Dan. It's got to be pretty, the third cup of coffee's got to be calling you pretty soon.
Oh, man. I'm thank God. I mean, this is why, a week in Canada, a week at nerd camp, and now I have to get back to being a different kind of nerd, which is the sports nerd, which is what I think most of us are these days. But it's gonna be 2 really good friendlies for Japan. I'm really excited to see how they turn out, and I'm especially excited to be able to watch them with coffee at my desk. I wish I could be there, but I hope that everyone who was going gets a chance. That I hope you enjoy a chance to see a quality national team, because at least there'll be one. At least there'll be one on the pitch. Hopefully two.
Hopefully two.
But at least one. And say hi to my friends in the Japan Active Support section. I'm sure a few of my buddies will be out there. And thank you for having me on. I mean, we go way back as people who watched my last appearance may know, to the old days of our nerdetry, and it's always a pleasure. And hopefully, I'll see you out here before too long.
Hopefully, we'll see what our schedule looks like. But thank you for your time, Dan, and keep your kit clean. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you'll listen to us the next time.